how's your week going to start the new tenure here at UH?
First, aloha. Thank you for having me. It is wonderful to be here, and I appreciate the chance to get to talk to you today. It's going great. This experience has been exhilarating. I meet so many incredible people who love UH, love the athletics program, and I'm so happy to be a part of this.
And we are incredibly excited to have you here joining us. 48-year-old from Massachusetts, an East Coast guy like me, though I am a New York guy. We'll get into that a little bit as we go. Spent plenty of time at UCLA, a background in law, spent time out here at the Hawaii Community Foundation, and now part of the UH Ohana. I want to start off... I want to start off quickly, but I want to start off all the way back, right? And just give the people an opportunity to learn a little bit about your upbringing, right? From, was it Framingham, Massachusetts? You grow up a three-sport athlete. You played tennis. You wrestled, and I'm missing one now, and that I'm soccer, that is actually what we have in common. I just want to give you the floor to talk a little bit. What was it like growing up over there in Massachusetts? Tell us a little bit about your family, a little bit about your high school career and your growing love of sports as a kid.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in Framingham, Mass, as you said. Was fortunate to have all of my grandparents live in the same town as me. And so when you got your grandparents around you, your parents, one sister, it's just a really privileged and fortunate upbringing to be surrounded by that much love and family, and that the hard work that my family exhibited throughout their life and how they just always put family first is probably the most important lesson that I've ever learned. And it also had the benefit of growing up in a really passionate sports town. So I was a Celtics fan from as long as I can remember. My dad would take me to games after work. He would come home from work, grab me, jump in the car, we'd drive to Boston, and I got to see Larry Bird and Robert Parrish and those teams. So I started loving sports for as long as I can remember. Played everything. Those are the sports I played, the ones you mentioned, the ones I played in high school, but, tried it all. I was one of those kids who was on the field and outside every single day doing something, and I just always loved sports. It probably bred that really competitive nature in me. So now to be here all these years later and to be in a position to do it at a place like UH where that passion burns so strong in this community, and where it's such a central and important part of everything that happens here in the state is really extraordinary.
It's cool to be a part of a family that loves sports. It's cool to live in a life that has sports so intertwined with it, but there's so much more that sports do, and I think that's something that you've recognized over your time, and in conjunction with education, how cool that can be. When it comes to, let's continue talking about your sports career, because I don't know how much we'll talk about it going forward.
Hopefully never again.
Which was your favorite? I guess I'll ask you that. Of your sports, was it one of the ones that you played? Did you play those ones because you were just talented at them? Was it because you had a love for them? You talk a little bit about basketball, but I know that wasn't necessarily a high school sport for you. What are your favorite sports?
I think from a playing standpoint, soccer was the sport that I gravitated to from 5 years old and played that. I even have played it as an adult and, random adult pickup leagues and things like that. So that was probably the sport that I just meshed with the best. I did love basketball. I played that through 8th grade. I didn't grow very much in middle school, so that's where I
you didn't
pivoted.
Look too out of place yesterday when we saw that picture with you and the men's basketball team. I was going to make a joke about that and say, maybe you got that COVID year eligibility. My apologies. Continue.
No. Yeah, but I really did love playing. I think that was really at its core. But I've also grown to appreciate so many more sports now that this has been my career. When I first got to California, I didn't know anything about water polo. And then to start to see that sport be played and how incredible those athletes are, and know that's a marquee sport, sport that UH is really successful at and has a chance to play on the final tournaments of the year. That's really cool. So I just appreciate it in sports in so many ways. And as you said, the student athlete experience is so unique because you've got that academic opportunity that goes along with it. And I started my career. First thing I did after college is I was an elementary school teacher. So education is so vital and critical to me and my belief system of how important that is in our society. And as I've said before, bringing those two things together is what motivates me.
And we're talking with the new UH athletic director, Matt Elliott, officially starting his job or his tenure yesterday. And I'm sure a lot of conversations before then and also yesterday as well. But I guess I want to dig in a little bit more on your education background in that sense. Kind of what inspired you to pursue that? Did you have a coach? Did you have a teacher? Did you have somebody that pushed that? Is that a family background type of thing? What is it that made education so important to you, and just the culmination of education and athletics? What was the first moment that you kind of remember that sticking out in your mind as, okay, this is something that I'm incredibly passionate about?
Probably the first thing I did was I was teaching tennis as a high schooler. That was one of my early jobs, and I did see that it's pretty cool when you are just with somebody, especially a young person, and see them develop a new skill, or kind of something clicks and they figure it out. But when I was in college, my summer job for 2 of the summers was to work in education kind of like a summer school education program, where the program itself, we lived with the students. We lived in the same community as the students, and so I would see them after school. I would see them in the classroom. We would go on these field trips together, and those bonds that we would develop with the families and with the children, just to me, I just loved it. I just had so much fun. I just thought it was so exciting. So early in my college career, I started to think I want to go into education, and that's what I want to do. And I don't think I knew whether I'd be a teacher forever or not, but I thought my first job, I want to be a teacher and I want to be in the classroom.
And here you are now helping out in a lot of different areas when it comes to athletics and education. We're chatting with new University of Hawai'i Athletics Director Matt Elliott here on 95.1 FM, AM 760, and streaming on hawaiisportsradio.com. Got to step aside for our first break. When we come back, we'll start to talk a little bit more about that college experience, talk a little bit about crew and the appreciation for a sport off the beaten path a little bit, and so much more coming up here on 95.1 FM, AM 760, and streaming live on hawaiisportsradio.com.
Stuck in traffic?
You're listening to Wake Up in the Den with Paul Brecht and Michael Lescaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, AM 760 and 95.1 FM, and streaming on hawaiisportsradio.com.
Back here on 95.1 FM, AM 760, and streaming live on HawaiiSportsRadio.com. Also on our YouTube channel, Hawaii Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Paul Brecht, Michael Lascaro, and the new head man here at UH, the new AD, Mr. Matt Elliott. Thank you again so much for joining us this morning. I know that you're making your media rounds and whatnot, but, it's important that we learn a little bit more about the background of the new man leading the University of Hawai'i athletic program. We talked a little bit about your high school career. We talked a little bit about your background, your family, your sisters, and all these things, right? I want to move to college, and mostly because I believe originally you're a D3 guy like me. Am I correct there? You're an Amherst College guy. So Division III always goes close to my heart. Division III school that also claims they have the oldest athletic department in the country and the oldest athletic program in the country. Also, today is the 166th anniversary of the first college baseball game in which they played in. So yeah, a whole bunch of Amherst news today.
Wow.
But while you were there, you participated in crew, in rowing, and that is something that is not necessarily as mainstream, I would say, as a sport. And I kind of want to dive into that there for a few different reasons, right? Here at the University of Hawaii, you already brought up water polo and seeing how awesome that sport is while you were at UCLA, right? Here at Hawaii, we have a ton of Olympic sports, and there are a ton of sports that sometimes get forgotten when we talk about the whole college realignment and when we talk about all of these separate areas, challenges, we'll call them, of collegiate sports nowadays. So I'd like your perspective on, all of the sports. So I kind of wanted to start there with your experience as a collegiate crew participant and kind of what got you into that in the first place. You mentioned before soccer being your favorite sport, and I would imagine that you wanted to play that in college and it maybe didn't eventually work out. So how did you make your way into the boat? How did you make it into rowing?
Yeah, you're right. I would have loved to play soccer, probably for as long as I could. I probably said as a 5-year-old, what's your dream job? I'm going to be a professional soccer athlete. And that wasn't meant to be. But the truth is that I just love sports so much, I wanted to continue to participate in any way I can. So when I got to school, you're right, a D3 program is a little different than what we are usually talking about here at UH. And crew is a sport where you could earn your way onto the team, even if you didn't have experience participating in the sport previously. So just, again, being passionate about that, staying in the competitive world, I did. I went out for the team as a freshman and started to learn the sport and grow into it and build that camaraderie with the team. And I started to love it because it's what I loved about sports. It was working with your teammates. It was figuring out new skills. Crew's challenging, especially on the East Coast when you're up at 5 a.m. every day. And, maybe the weather's nice in the first month of the season and then it starts getting colder and colder. And we would be in the Connecticut River rowing with ice in the river at the same time. So that taught us a lot about grit. But it just framed the value of the student athlete experience because it made me so much better at managing my time, at figuring out how to work with different types of teammates. In high school, you're working with teammates, but they're all from kind of the same place. Now you go to a college experience, you got people from all over the country, all over the world on your team. So you're learning about all these different cultures, about all the different habits and experiences they've had, and you're growing as an individual. And then you're also at the same time getting that really elite level coaching and figuring out how to get better at something. So I like the sport a lot. I thought it was, as I said before, really challenging, but it also kind of built up that character, I think, which is an element, I think, of sports in general, is it teaches people that resiliency, overcoming. There's always going to be disappointment. There's always going to be success, staying steady in that, staying committed. I still remember some of the guys on that team very well, and maybe we're not in contact, but I know I could name, I'm pretty sure I could name the 8 seats of the boat that I was in right now, the first names of every one of those guys, even though some of them I haven't seen in 20 something years,
It sounds like a lot of great memories, but it's an important experience, right? So that you are able to kind of know the trials and tribulations that go through for these collegiate student athletes. You talk about being able to work together as a team, being able to work competitively with people from all over the world, all over the country. And that is something that certainly here in Hawaii, we continue to see in the international population. And as I mentioned before, the Olympic sports, incredibly, incredibly popular. Just kind of continuing off that, what is your appreciation? You talked a little bit about water polo for those sports, not necessarily your basketballs, your football, or even your soccer, right? But maybe the Olympic sports here, volleyball, I know is something that you've gotten an eye on and something that is not as big on the East Coast. At least men's volleyball isn't as big on the East Coast. At least it wasn't in the way that I saw it. So kind of talk about your appreciation for those other, quote unquote, I'll say, other sports.
Yeah, certainly there's regionalism for all sports, but I think at its core, why I appreciate every sport and why they're all so valuable is because what they do is provide that student athlete experience. So it doesn't matter if you're playing volleyball or football or tennis, whatever it is that this is a pathway for an individual, our elite student athletes, to come here and get their degrees and participate in their sport. And then it's all equal. Like that, then, right, what their experience is, what they're doing is the same. And that's why I believe so strongly in broad-based excellence. I believe we can thrive in every sport, and we need to support all of our coaches, support all of our student athletes, and figure out how can we succeed at the level, whatever level they're at, whatever sport they're at, whatever the competitive environment is, to give them the resources so they can go out and do that. Because if we set them up, right, then that's the part that is so much fun for all of us, is to watch them go out, get on that field, start competing, and then they take care of it from there. And that's where we as fans then just get to enjoy it.
It's an incredibly enjoyable time to watch our student athletes compete. I want to continue on our journey and our trip down memory lane as well. We were talking about your college experience before, and your college experience didn't stop at Amherst, right? You continued on and end up going to law school. You go to Northwestern, right?
Right. Yes.
And you continue on. Talk a little bit about what got you interested in law in the first place, and why it was so important for you to pursue that back in the day, and how does that help you now in this career?
Yeah, to me, it felt like just a natural progression of skill development in a lot of ways. I'd been teaching in the nonprofit sector for a few years and saw, there's educational policy decisions being made that I don't understand, or I don't know how to navigate this world of how government works. So in a lot of ways, I wanted to just understand that stuff. I also saw that if you went and got that law degree, if you went and got that skills, then you could use that in a way to make a profound impact on the world. So in law school, my focus was really on public interest law. I was in the Children and Family Justice Clinic the entire time I was there. So still working with students, working with individuals who are dealing with the legal system and all those complexities. But it wasn't for me about building a specific career. It was more about gaining that skill set that I thought would then be adaptable in whatever journey I would take from there. And this is a little bit funny, but when I applied to Northwestern, I'd been to a D3 school. I grew up in Massachusetts, where college sports wasn't necessarily the focus. Pro sports, kind of a pro sports town. And they had the opportunity to write your additional essay for the application. And my additional essay was all about, I would love to go to a school that has a Big Ten football program because I want to be able to watch those games while I'm in law school, which I doubt many other people wrote in their law school essays, but
probably made you stick out.
Yeah, it shows where I was going. I didn't even know it, but this was the path I was on.
It's funny. I was going to say, funny enough, and obviously as we go further into your career, UCLA eventually makes the move to the Big Ten, and a circular almost path for you in that sense. So let's see. That means you had Massachusetts winters and Chicago winters. I guess I'll ask you, which one is worse in your experience? Is there a worse, or they differ in their cold ways? When was the last time you experienced a northeastern type, a nor'eastern, as we refer to them up there?
Yeah, probably. I think we were home for the holidays last Christmas, so
okay,
it was pretty cold when we were back home. Yeah,
you got a good one.
We'll go occasionally. I do want my son, even though I'm we are raising him here, and this is going to be his home. I want him to experience snow. I want him to experience winter and try sledding and all and skiing and all those things. So we will get back there and be with my family in the winters when we can.
All right, that's good at least. And then as you continued on your journey across the country, you graduate from Northwestern, and well, during that time, you're sending out applications for clerkships, right? And those continue to lead you west as a young man, right? Some opportunities on the West Coast, but an opportunity more specifically in Hawaii. You go on to hear back from U.S. District Court Judge Alan Kay. Let's start with the importance of the clerkship, what you were looking for, why the arrow out towards Hawaii, and kind of that part of your journey as you graduated from law school and you continued on, as you've talked about, opening up those new doors, getting those new experiences.
Yeah, Judge Kay is an extraordinarily well-respected jurist. He had been here, had already been on the bench for a significant number of years. So if you get that call, which invites you to take a position like a clerkship with a judge like Judge Kay, that that's going to shape your legal career in a profound way. So that was an immediate yes for me. And I wanted to come to a place. I did apply to places I hadn't lived before. I wanted to, again, continue to expand my horizons, and the opportunity to come to Hawaii was obviously a very new horizon for me. But I was excited about that because I could come and learn about a new place, learn from a judge who's, as I expected, and way more so, taught me so much about how to think critically, how to write critically. But I also learned about this place while I was here, because as cases come through the system, you're seeing individuals, you're seeing how things are impacting their lives, you're understanding the local culture, you're understanding Native Hawaiian culture, how that impacts many of the decisions that judges have to make or legislators ultimately have to make, our government is making. So it started to be, kind of shape my understanding of this place in a little bit. So even though I was only here for that specific experience, I started in very basic ways, but started to understand what it was like to live here and be here.
And we're chatting with University of Hawai'i Athletic Director Matt Elliott about his journey out here to the islands. And we got to step aside for our next break, but that is where I want to go next. Your first experience here in Hawaii, how that has helped shape you. Maybe we'll get into a little background too as well, maybe a love story or something along those lines. Plenty more to come up here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, chatting with Matt Elliott, the new University of Hawai'i Athletic Director. You don't want to go anywhere. We're live on 95.1 FM, streaming on hawaiisportsradio.com and on YouTube. We'll be right back after the break.
It's a brand new day.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Paul Brecht and Michael Lescaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Back here on Wake Up in the Den, 95.1 FM, AM 760, and streaming live on hawaiisportsradio.com. Also live on our YouTube channel. If you have a question for new University of Hawai'i at Manoa Athletics Director Matt Elliott, be sure to leave a like and then drop a comment, and then maybe shoot us a text as well at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481. And we did discover yesterday that KGU1, if you type that in specifically, it does still get the text into our text line, as our Michael Lescaro was making fun of me yesterday. But we're chatting with new University of Hawai'i Athletics Director Matt Elliott, and we've talked some of your background, and now we're finally to the first stint in Hawaii, right? When you come out and you have your clerkship for Judge K, and I want to continue on with that a little bit more, right? And talk about your first experience in Hawaii, because as a fellow East Coast guy, people don't want to hear about my experiences. I'm not as important, but I know that I fell in love with this place almost immediately. You step on, onto the shores, you step onto the streets, and you fall in love, whether it's with the beauty, whether it's with the people, whether it's with the culture, the sports, the competitive, all of the things that you could possibly love. That is kind of what you fall in love with. I'm curious what the experience was like for you. Was it similar to that experience of, you step on and you're like, whoa, this is a totally different world? Was it a big adjustment for you? How did that kind of go as you went from East Coast to the middle of the country-ish, and then all the way about, 5,000 miles from where you started? What was your experience like the first time you came here to the islands?
Yeah, so the first time I came, I get picked up at the airport by somebody who has sublet a room to me. And I'm going to live in this room for 1 month, and she's this, great auntie. She picks me up, and she doesn't know me at all, doesn't even have to pick me up, but she picks me up at the airport and then says, well, what are you going to eat? And I said, oh, I don't know. I'll just figure it out when I get there. And she said, okay. So she drives me to Market City. We go to Foodland. She takes me food shopping. Then she drives me to her house, drops me off, calls the next day to check on me. And that is the memory of like your first experience of just this incredible kindness. And that has stayed with me, and that has resonated, and that aloha spirit and that kindness that is demonstrated across just this community in general. I found that in the family. I found that in my wife, and it's true in almost every interaction that I've had. I just worked at a place, the Hawaii Community Foundation. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Where again, I just could not believe how incredibly kind everybody was that I got to spend time with in that environment. And yes, there's the natural beauty. Yes, there's incredible things happening here from a business standpoint, from a university standpoint. Athletics is so exciting, of course, but I'm always going to come back to, at its core, like the community here is about taking care of each other, and I absolutely love that.
And it certainly is, and the aloha spirit we talk about all the time. I'm glad that it was on display so early for you. And you bring up your wife, so I suppose that's where we should dig in a little bit more. I know I am curious, and I know that our Ku'ule Agbayani was curious. I know that we've gotten a couple of texts about it. What is the love story between you and your wife, Allison, or at least whatever you can share with us? How did you guys meet? How did you guys come to be together? I can't imagine there's a ton of extra time during a clerkship. I'm sure that there's a lot of reading, writing, and whatnot. So how do you find the time to have a little bit of romance on the side?
I think it really was meant to be, because I knew I was coming here for a set period of time. My clerkship was going to be for a year, and then I already had my job at a law firm back in Boston. So it wasn't, I wasn't coming here thinking this is open-ended. And we met a few months into my clerkship here. That was just totally random, being out with friends, and we got to connect. And you don't start a long-term relationship when you know you're leaving. Right? That's not the path that most people think of. So from that point, I guess the reality is I really genuinely believe we were the right people for each other. And even if we didn't think it made sense, and even if she said for months, I will never move to Boston because of how cold it is and how far away it is. She eventually did. I went back, then she eventually followed a few months later, and we were there for 4+ years, but always thinking, probably Boston's not going to be the long-term place. So California made sense as a next stop to kind of be in between our families. But once you find that person, you just figure it out from there. You stay together, and then the rest of the journey, that's pretty easy.
That's a fun one. Funny enough, I relate to that a bit with my wife in terms of going a long distance away. You don't exactly sign up for that type of story, but man, is it a fun one to tell once you get to this point. All right, so you were out having some fun and you were able to do some stuff while you were here the first time. What are some of those other experiences like? What were the games? I think I read about you experiencing an Oregon State game versus Hawaii at Aloha Stadium for the football team. Did you have other experiences? Was UH football your lone experience when it came to UH athletics? Your first time, obviously, out here. Kind of what was your introduction to UH sports while you were here?
Yeah, so over the course of the year, there are a bunch of different sort of check-ins with the sports community here, I would say, overall. So got a chance to go to the Pro Bowl right after I got here. So that was pretty awesome. Started going to volleyball games especially once I met Allie. I think that was kind of the tail end of the men's season, but her family are big volleyball fans, used to have tickets. So I started going to those games. Then there was summer baseball. I remember going to watch those games, and then ultimately culminated with volleyball again in the fall. And I did get a chance to go to a UH football game. So I had a lot of those moments. Also wanted to make sure that I was here seeing the beauty of this place. I traveled to every neighbor island while I was here in that first year. Again, I wanted to make sure that it filled up my cup, if you will, with as much of the experience as possible and met as many as folks. So we did do summer trips. I did trips with some of the clerks as well. But yeah, being at that UH game at the end of the year against Oregon State, where we got to sit in the traffic, be at the tailgate, go into the game, tens of thousands of fans. And it was a game that the stakes were high. It mattered quite a bit at the end of the season there. That was pretty awesome. And I think, while I didn't know it at the time, I think I certainly started to get that UH support feeling in my blood. And then living with Allie for the last 20 years and her family, they are such big fans that no matter where we were following the teams. And, we were rooting for them no matter what.
There's a little extra once you get the fandom inside you. It certainly feels a little bit different. And I do kind of want to talk about that environment, that feeling. And we do see it for volleyball all the time. But obviously the big question always is around Aloha Stadium. That's something we'll talk about more. But how important is it to you to kind of rebuild, and maybe that's too strong of a term, but to help rebuild that feeling and that momentum of that environment, the tailgate, the sold out stadium, the feeling, the vibes, obviously the football program on and up, but there's still more to come. How important is it to you to kind of help restore those vibes that you experienced way back in the day?
Yeah, I think we would all love that, to have that full stadium. The team runs out of the tunnel, every seat is full, fans are screaming, the opponents are intimidated. Right, that's what would the ideal, I think, of college sports. And we get to see that with volleyball. We get to see that with baseball. We get to see that at specific games in other sports. And we want to replicate that as broadly as possible. But no question, the long-term objective of having a permanent football stadium will be something that helps this program grow. And it doesn't just help football. It helps the entire department grow. And I do believe that if the stadium is successful, that's an asset for the whole community as well. So yeah, I absolutely believe in it, and I want to be a big part of getting us there.
It's a conversation that I'm sure will come up a few more times. And for those of you who just tuned in or are just tuning in, please shoot us a text at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481. Or go to our YouTube channel where we are streaming live and drop a question for Matt Elliott. I'm sure that some more will come through, but we will discuss more on Aloha Stadium, the football team, and so much more with UH. In this first hour, though, a lot of it, we're getting to know you a little bit more. So I do want to go back to our path, right? So you close out your year in Hawaii, you go back to Boston, you spend some time in Boston and back in Massachusetts. But then you go out towards UCLA, right? And that's where a big portion of your life, it seems, was spent. At least a quarter of your life was spent with the Bruins. So talk a little bit about how that opportunity came on your radar. And I suppose you did get into it a little bit with family talking about potentially moving west a bit more as Kai got older or as your family started to grow. But talk a little bit about UCLA and how that opportunity came on your table.
Yep. So just real briefly, I started doing sports law as part of my practice at the firm that I was at and working directly with universities. So my mindset shifted from practicing as an attorney to I would like to work in college sports and I would like to get into a department. So that's where, excuse me, Allie and I made that choice. All right, let's focus on moving to the West Coast. And if I'm going to pursue an athletics career, this is a good time to do that as we go through the move. So gave up my job at the law firm, went all in on finding a job in college athletics. I had a mentor at the law firm who knew the athletics director at UCLA. So that was one of a series of meetings that I had to try to figure out the right entry point and that opportunity. Just the timing worked out really well that they were looking to build and expand their legal/compliance expertise. And I fit into that spot as a opportunity to just learn, understand how college sports really worked at that time. And I never would have guessed, but 11 years in person, 13 years total, I really grew up professionally at UCLA.
I can imagine that it led to a lot of different experiences. You mentioned how college sports were at the time, and things have certainly evolved and will continue to evolve as the future goes forward. You held plenty of different roles while with the Bruins, and that's where I want to go next, and that'll kind of kick off our conversation about the current Matt Elliott, the current version of you, where you have now become an athletic director all into yourself and for the University of Hawai'i. We'll talk about that to close out hour number one and entering into hour number two. Don't go anywhere. We got to take a quick break, though. You're listening to Wake Up in the Den on 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Stuck in traffic.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Paul Brecht and Michael Lascaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Getting ready to close out hour number one here on Wake Up in the Den and getting ready to say aloha to new University of Hawai'i Athletics Director Matt Elliott. Appreciate you taking time out of your day, spending it with us here in hour number one. We've talked quite a bit about your journey here to the islands. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the fact that you are here, and we've gotten a bunch of text questions in, so I want to go into there. A lot of them Hawaii football related, a lot of them whether it's uniform related, stadium related, or just the program. I just want to prepare you before we get into it. So starting off here, we have a texter texting in asking, are there any plans to play a game on Maui, and how important do you feel a 13th game is for the football program? Obviously, the Hawaii exception with week 0 and whatnot. Is that something that you find to be incredibly important going forward to try and find scheduling-wise?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have not had the scheduling conversation with Coach and our staff yet. What I know about college football scheduling is you're trying to do two things. You're trying to create a competitive schedule where your fans are excited, where they want to come and watch the games. As you talked about, maybe you play in different places as you get creative with that and with the venue. But at the end of the day, you also want to create a schedule where you're going to be successful. And people will remember that you won a lot of games and that you qualified for a bowl, and that they were passionate about that team being really good on the field. And I think with wins and with success, more people want to come. That the product gets even more desirable. The fans, the stadium fills up. So those are the two things you're looking at. You got to generate your revenue for your department, but you also want to be successful. So that's where our philosophy will start. How we're going to schedule, yes, week 0 always matters. I think that's, maybe that's going to change. As we know right now, the NCAA is evaluating that rule for other schools, but that's an asset for us right now. That's an opportunity that not everybody gets. So I think week 0 matters. Do you play 13 games? Not necessarily. That's something that's very specific to what your schedule is going to look like.
Gotcha. Love that. Going to continue rapid fire throwing questions at you.
Fun. Yeah.
This was, I thought, a really fun and interesting question from this texter. Football has always been our biggest revenue driver, and ever since the early 2000s, there's been this feeling of what could have been. We're the only Division I team in our time zone, which is a huge advantage, but it feels like we've never really capitalized on it. Do you have any ideas on how we can finally change that, and how we stop just getting by, and how we can start building for real long-term growth? Very, very heavy question, I know, to throw at you, but I do think an important one to ask you. Talk a little bit about revenue building and whatnot. But yeah, how do you change that and capitalize on the uniqueness of what Hawaii has going for it?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. The uniqueness is a strength, and we create an opportunity, whether it's when games can be played, that we could be the only game on in the country, right, at a certain time. Or we could be in week 0, the marquee game that's being played that week. If you look at, the few games that are out there, we get on national television. And everything we do and everything we say about this program, not just football, but the program overall, is about positioning ourselves to be a desirable asset for conference alignment, for competition, teams that want to come here and play, for fans that want to be in the environment. I believe that our story is actually very strong, and that is the job of the athletics director, to be very clear when we message that and make sure everybody around us is saying that as well. We have strengths when we get to the negotiating table and whatever we're doing. If we're making sponsorship deals or multimedia rights deals, or we're talking about, what is the conference position you're in, all of those things come to the forefront when you sell. This is what is phenomenal and special about this place. People want to be here. It is a desirable location for so many reasons from what we talked about, and we also have a strong tradition of success. So I think the foundation here is outstanding. College sports is changing, and we have to adapt to that, but also know that it's going to continue to change and be ready for that as well. It's
certainly important to be ready to move, ready to adapt, and not be reactive to things like that. Continuing on with the conversation today, obviously starts a new era for UH sports for a few different reasons. Obviously, you are now in your tenure yesterday, day number 1, but also switching over from a partnership with Adidas now with Nike. You have experience with Nike at your previous institution in UCLA. Was hoping you could speak a little bit to what that experience was like working with them. And maybe I know we also had a texter asking about when perhaps they can expect the UH football Nike uniforms. Maybe you have that answer, maybe you don't.
I'll be straight. I don't have that answer, but I will find out, and I'm sure we will have a great plan. I know we will start, promoting the fact that partnership is happening today, and we will do that through our department's vehicles and social media. I also do have experience working with them, and I think Nike is an excellent product, and it's also a strong brand, and that appeals to student athletes. It appeals to coaches. It appeals to fans who want to buy the merchandise. So I think it is a great place to be when you're aligned with a brand like Nike who's been successful for so long, and I'm excited to see as the stuff as it starts rolling in as well. The timeline when you come on board with a new apparel company is you got to start thinking about those orders almost a year in advance, right? So there's a lot of work that goes into that. I know our equipment staff is thinking about it. I know our communication staff is thinking about it, how we share all of that, and we'll do it in a very cool way. But yeah, you're right. It's a cool moment. It's an exciting moment to be starting that today as well.
Continuing on our conversation, and appreciate that answer and any insight that you do give during your sit down here. I have another texter asking about the football team last year. They enjoyed charter flights this year. It's been talked about not getting them. Is that a cost considerations thing? This texter asks. Do you know, is that a conversation that you will open up again in the future, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's all part of the bigger budget conversation that we're going to start having now that I'm here. So already had conversations yesterday about gathering all of that information. And I know, again, I always am going to say, the department didn't just start yesterday, right? All of our team has been working on these things for months to figure out how do we make the right choices to give our teams and our student athletes the best chance to be successful. But very much so now that I'm here, decisions have to be made. So it's requirement of my job to do it right, to gather all the right information. And I know that topic is out there. So I've already started talking about it with our staff as well to make sure that we can make an informed decision as soon as possible.
And then something else I know people talk about all the time are the staff. How's it been getting to know the current staff and the people that you are coming in to work with? You talk about the Aloha spirit. Your first time, how has the Aloha spirit been this second time? And do you see yourself making additions to the people who are currently here already?
Yeah, I have no idea about am I going to make
That's
additions,
what I figured.
because the answer is yes. The people have been wonderful. Everybody I've talked to is passionate about the work that they do. I know that we do have, in terms of additions, part of the easy answer is there's always vacancies in every job you go into. So we're going to fill those. We're going to bring the team together, see what our skill set is. What I do know is that I think I have a very good sense of how college sports works and what are the roles that you need. And I think we have great people here, and then we'll assess, okay, are we fitting all of those roles? Are we handling all of the responsibilities? And then if we need something else, if there's a position that we don't have, or if there's a skill that we don't have, okay, then you talk about that. But first job is to get to know your people that are here and really lean into that talent and that experience.
I was going to say, there's a lot of returning experience and a lot of people who know what are going on. So I'm more so wanted to know how that was going to go. We do have, I know we're running out of time here in hour number 1, and we're going to have to let you go. So the last question that we got from a texter that I know we got to get in here, I ask about the stadium one more time, where, UH with the Aloha Stadium thing, you're looking at the bigger Aloha Stadium, right? The permanent Aloha Stadium. Is there anything, should this, I don't even like asking this question, I apologize. Is there any discussion about an on-campus stadium should things not go with last week's announcement with a pushback and a delay? Is there any worry about the new Aloha Stadium project?
From everything I know, everybody who's working extremely hard on this, right? The goal is to have the stadium in Halawa. That's the conversation that I've been privy to. I know that I will now in this role be welcome in participating in committees, and teams. I will start meeting with folks who are on the stadium authority. I've already had conversations, but start meeting with them in person as early as tomorrow. So that's where I believe the entire state's focus is right now, from everything that I've understood, and that's kind of how I'm starting this job, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. We'll figure out the rest as we go. You don't like to plan for negativity. It's always smart to have a plan for it, but also you don't want to expect that. We've got to wrap up hour number 1, so I will ask you if you have any message that you want to say to UH fans as you now officially have started the job. You've gotten on as the head man and gotten a chance to have a couple of conversations. If there's anything you want to leave the beautiful people with before you get on out of here.
Just, I would say, mahalo for your incredible support. I've felt it as an individual, and I know our teams feel that support when they're participating and representing this university and this state. So buy tickets, come on out, support them. We want to see you there. We want to have the best possible environment for our teams to be successful. I can't wait to meet you all in person, and it really is genuinely a true honor to be in this role. So thank you guys for having me today, and just thank you to everybody for this opportunity.
Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. I know you got a busy schedule coming on up, so we will cut you loose. We'll get you back in, and we'll talk a little bit more about your journey, about you, your background, your thoughts, and all of the other things. But this was awesome. Really, really appreciate the time, and we'll chat with you again soon. Thank you so much. That'll wrap up hour number 1 here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network. Hour number 2 back on the way. It'll be just Michael Lescaro and I, and we'll talk all about this conversation and much, much more coming on up on 95.1 FM, AM 760, and streaming live on hawaiisportsradio.com.
What if we told you
with Paul Brecht and Michael Lescaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, AM 760 and 95.1 FM, and streaming on hawaiisportsradio.com.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network. Paul Brecht, Michael Lascaro. No more Matt Elliott for hour 2. Just hour number 1 with our new friend from University of Hawai'i Athletics. Appreciate everybody who has tuned in up into this point. Anybody who texted in a question or left us a question via social or comments on YouTube. My apologies if we did not get to them quite yet. I promise we will get Matt Elliott on to discuss many a topic another time, but he does have a job to do. He does have things to do. So we had to cut him loose, and appreciate him taking time out of his day at all, especially early in the morning, joining us from 8 to 9 a.m. here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network. In case you missed our conversation where we were getting to know the new head man of the University of Hawai'i at Manoa Athletics Department, well, it'll be available on demand where you get most podcasts after this show completes. At Hawaii Sports Radio Network, or you can go to our YouTube channel, Hawaii Sports Radio Network, and check out this in-studio version of the show, Wake Up in the Den. Michael, why don't you crack the mic for the first time? How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing well, Paul. I mean, it was just kind of hard because I mean, you have your whole Rolodex
right, I got the notes.
of questions and notes. I was like, I don't know how to cut in. Plus, I also can barely make eye contact with you over there, so I didn't know how to signal to hey, can I chime in? But yeah, it was good. I mean, for those that are watching on YouTube, I guess you can see that I'm wearing my Indiana Pacers hat. And when I woke up this morning, it was a very sad time because Myles Turner is no longer Indiana Pacer, the longest tenured Pacer. That was on last year's team, and I was in a very sad mood. But Matt Elliott coming into office is a very great mood. Great positivity of light where it makes me feel better. They also brought us donuts, so that also helps. And I guess in terms of looking at your personnel and looking at what you got, kind of like a GM, we made a trade. He gave us donuts. We traded water, and because he needed, he's been making the rounds over, talking to a lot of media and sit downs or interviews or stories and whatnot. And, he's got a job to do. And I know there's a lot of questions and a lot of things that were asked or that maybe we didn't get into. But I did kind of do my research. I did kind of glean and listen to a lot of the interviews and stories and media interviews that he was a part of. So I can perhaps maybe summarize some of those things when we start talking about it and kind of just reacting to Matt Elliott in studio for our first hour, Paul.
Yeah, that was honestly my plan. Was we're going to chat a little bit about what just happened, where got a chance to meet the guy, and it was nice. You got an actual opportunity to go to his introductory press conference, got a chance to shake his hand in person for the first time, and all of those things. A nice opportunity today for me to do that and look him in the eye and actually have a conversation. It was fun listening to his story about him and his wife Allison there, because it did remind me ever so slightly of my story with my wife, where except almost the opposite. I moved from New York to Hawaii, and about 6 months beforehand we had met, and that was the whole thing where she never thought she would wait, and all things considered, it worked out well for me, and it worked out well for the University of Hawaii. It seems like that Matt Elliott fell in love with a gal while he was out here. I thought he gave a bunch of really good answers, and I understand as well, he is just starting, right? He's just beginning his tenure as the athletic director at the University of Hawai'i. That's part of the reason why some of the questions today, maybe you didn't get the exact answer that you're looking for. And of course, now I'm speaking to those who were so gracious to text in. And once again, we appreciate those who have texted in any questions for Matt Elliott. We'll try and effort anything that we didn't get on air to get to him in the future. But no, I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was fun to learn a little bit more. It's always fun for me to meet extra East Coast people here in Hawaii. It feels like a hotbed for us for whatever reason, probably because it always is snowing. But
I mean, Paul, when you bring up the East Coast questions, I'm like, I hope our listeners don't tune out because you're talking about winters. Like, what is winter here in Hawaii, Paul? But yeah, one thing I like, one thing that I do. Well, I'll say is, again, this is only his second day on his job. He's taking his time out of his morning to come chat with us, chat with some other media people. So he's already, I guess, kind of working overtime because he's already got meetings scheduled for the day. And one of the things that I like is that, and we can kind of allegorize it with him and his wife Allison, right? Where we're gonna figure it out, right? He talks about Allison not wanting to move to Boston, but whatever it be, we'll figure it out. And I think that's the thing that we as fans and we as people in the audience or people that are listening or wanting to know about Matt Elliott is he's gonna figure things out, right? And part of figuring things out is making sure he gets all the data, right? Data, however you say it.
Same thing.
And that's something that we need to give him the time and respect to do, because he needs to come here and learn everything. There is a lot that's going on. And again, when he says he's going to have to, rely on some of the existing people in the department, that's true, because he can't just come in here and kind of like make waves right away. That's not the Hawaii way for those that are from here. So what I like is that he's going to figure out, and he's a very big collaborator, right? He wants to see where your strengths are and what you're good at, and then whatever voids that we need to fill. He mentioned that there's vacancies already in the department, which I'm not too sure what those are, but
he would know better than we.
But those vacancies, obviously, if we're not attuned to it, those are not really high priority vacancies. Like high priority positions, I should say.
Right.
Which means that he's also thinking about the very basic, right? Who knows? Maybe it could be like a custodial job, right? But if there's a vacancy here at the only Division I program here at the university, we should have people wanting to fill those, right? And we're the University of Hawaii is the professional team of essentially the professional team of Hawaii, and people should be dying to get into that department. And I think that's the thing that Matt Elliott will bring is, hey, how do we make this thing better, right? He mentions the student athlete experience, and we as fans that just look at the wins and losses and the product on the field, we're kind of focused on, we just need to get this player, we need money for recruit this player, or we need to fire this coach and get this coach. But if we're not maximizing the talent and the resources and the staffing that we already have now, how do we expect that's going to change? If we don't fix kind of the core tenets inside or maximize the people we have, the student athletes we have, and they put them in the right positions to succeed, how can we fairly judge them? And that's one thing that I feel confident with Matt Elliott that he's going to do as athletic director for the University of Hawaii.
I think you bring up a great point there, and a lot of great points, but big thing that I took was, we'll figure it out. We'll make sure that things get figured out, but he's not into making waste. He's not into coming in and completely blowing up the department and saying, well, it's Matt Elliott's way or the highway. He's very interested in making sure that this is a smooth transition, it seems like, and making sure that he's able to hit the ground running now as he begins his career as the new University of Hawaii at Manoa athletics department or athletics director. So I do like that. I like the somewhat cautious approach, but not one that is too much of a step back, if that makes sense, right? Where he's not going to go full guns blazing into any situation, but he is going to have the full analysis of every situation. He is going to understand what he's getting into. He's going to have the conversations. He's not afraid to have the potentially upsetting conversations as well, and understands that they are important as he goes forward in this role and for the University of Hawaii as a whole. You talk about the student athletes and the ability for them to participate and be able to be the top level athlete that they can be, provide the top experience that we can provide here at the University of Hawaii. And I do think that it's important that it goes beyond just the facilities, right? Obviously, Aloha Stadium is such a big conversation around it, but that's not the only thing that he discussed when it comes to UH football. That's not the only thing that he has his eyes on. It's not just the stadium, it's the entertainment district. It's building something for the state, and it feels like, at the very least, from where I'm sitting, he has a good idea of what is needed to be successful here in Hawaii, to make sure that the fans are happy going forward, that they are going to be invested going forward, so that, it takes one big community if UH is going to be successful, it's because they have the support of the community. But if the support of the community is there, it's because UH is being successful.
Yeah, and you mentioned the stadium. One thing I think he did tell us on air was he does have a meeting with the Stadium Authority Board tomorrow. So,
he's still figuring it out.
He's still figuring it out. And, again, last week I got a chance to go to a Stadium Authority Board meeting, and everything seems positive. I'm sure when he goes to those meetings, it's going to be some positive signs. I do know he's already been in contact with Brendan Morioka, who's the former Stadium Authority Board. Brendan Morioka is very good with engineering and project management. That's his background. So I already know, like, he's on the job, right? When he was trying to make sure we gets out of here in time, he's like, oh, I got a meeting. I need, we need to get going. So, but yeah, very, very good. I mean, I know there's a lot of questions the fans have right now, and honestly, he can't answer it because he just doesn't have all the information. And that's something that I respect because, there's a lot of times where people try to answer questions that they don't know the answers to, and they just make themselves look like a fool, or they make themselves, or they misspeak and misrepresent something. So I like that he's confident to say, I don't have that right now. And that's something, I think that's something in life we just need to do. It's like, I can't answer that right now, but let me get back to you. And one thing, again, Hawaii, we need to be better at communicating. And one thing I like about Matt Elliott is he's a great communicator. Sometimes it's just a little communication. Like, even for me and you, Paul, like when in the last hour, like, oh, we didn't have our mode to communicate. We just have to text message, which kind of looks unprofessional, but that's just the only
right. It's the way that it goes.
Maybe we need to have like a tap or like a button we can press here in the studio. Heck, when our studio is kind of banging. We're on YouTube, so we must want to show. There's nothing behind me right now, but our studio, Paul, if you want to go to the wide shot and stuff, our studio has a lot of stuff. So I think that's kind of cool. Maybe we just need to figure out how to like make room or tilt these these laptops. That's
the issue, really.
Maybe I can do this.
Yeah, that's the issue. Is the computers?
We're just gonna have to work like this, and we can work like this. Is fine.
They're set in a way that it's just a little bit awkward. You can't really make the hand point gesture. It's difficult. We didn't do the best job figuring it out, but we're trying, and we tried our very best for the beautiful people. But still believe that it's going to be a good time. It was enjoyable to discuss with Matt Elliott. Something else he was talking about was a Maui game, a 13th game.
Which, by the way, when you asked him about week 0 and the 13th game, his thoughts were exactly what I said yesterday, Paul. So I wanna tap my.
You want to give a little pat on the back?
Pat on the back because
a little round of applause for Michael.
It's true. Like you said, week 0 is that's prime opportunity for our university, for our program to be in the limelight, right? But that 13th game maybe it's not as important because it's just not that as important as in the past because hopefully we have a winning record already and we're gonna get a 13th game via a bowl game or we're in the chase for a national championship. And I know I say that in jest that hey we might be in the college football playoffs, but there already has been talks about perhaps the group of 5 or group of 6 now coming kind of making their own NIT. Where hey, this is something for them to participate in. So who knows? We could be there. So when I say that, I'm not just saying that talking out of one end of my skull, right? It's a very likely possibility.
I am very glad that you feel validated for your take yesterday. But no, you're right. He did kind of echo what your sentiments were, the importance of playing week 0 and the importance of week 0, but weighing it against a 13th game, it's important to be able to make bowl games in general. It's not scheduling an additional game at the behest or at the detriment to your actual football schedule, to your potential bowl chances. So I do like his measured approach in that. I really liked our conversation. I enjoyed our conversation with him in general. And once again, in case you missed it, that will be available on demand after the show completes, both on YouTube and on demand wherever you get most podcasts. Hour number 1 today, Matt Elliott joining us. We got to step aside for our first break of hour number 2, though. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Wake Up in the Den, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
You're listening to Wake Up in the Den with Paul Brecht and Michael Lescaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, AM 760 and 95.1 FM, and streaming on hawaiisportsradio.com.
Back here on Wake Up in the Den with Paul Brecht, Michael Lescaro. Happy Aloha Tuesday, beautiful people. Had Matt Elliott, the new UH AD, in studio with us in hour number 1. We talked a whole bunch about his background, got to know the love story between him and his wife Allison a little bit, and a little bit more about his career, both playing, both in school, all the way in law at UCLA, coming out here, what it was like the first time he was out here. I will say this, Michael, something that I don't know if I appreciate, something that I'm drawn to, something that I love, whatever it may be. When it comes to Matt Elliott, there is something to him having experience in the old Aloha Stadium to me that sticks out. Something about him experiencing that, something about him, and not just the game itself, not just a sold-out environment, but he specifically mentioned tailgating as well, which gives me good vibes of, obviously there are a bunch of obstacles that are in the way that come with trying to tailgate, and that's why you haven't necessarily seen it as much at University of Hawai'i. They're trying different things to allow fans to tailgate or get a tailgating experience out there. But I did find it encouraging. I did enjoy the fact that that was part of the experience, because to me that describes him actually understanding a bit more what the fans are looking for, because he has experienced a game day for UH football at Aloha Stadium, experienced all of the quality, experiences of Aloha Stadium, old Aloha Stadium, and what that can mean for college kids, for young adults, for families, and so on and so forth. So I did find that to be somewhat encouraging as well as we continue this conversation about the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District and the project and all of these things, because I do know that people are worried about it. I do know that people have suggested building a stadium on campus, and I am a staunch advocate for building the new Aloha Stadium, going up in Halava and being able to have that actual Division I facility. It is nice to hear the guy who is actually pretty much in charge of that, or will have a big hand in making sure that that continues on. He also feels pretty strongly, it seems like, about having a Division I stadium, about having something for the fans to go to and have this quality experience. Yeah.
Well, okay, let me just say this. Like, I'm speaking just as like me as a human being, not me as speaking for Matt Elliott when I say this. I don't want to speak for Matt Elliott because Matt Elliott can speak for himself better than
he's
better.
Very good at speaking for himself.
But just realize for him, secondly on the job, right?
Absolutely.
Imagine if you're told, and just put yourself in his shoes. Imagine if you're told, hey, you're also gonna have to prepare to build a stadium on campus.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already got a million things on his plate. Let's not put that on his plate, trying to have him figure that out. But yeah, from everything, again, we've been saying, like, everything, we're at the 10-yard line, right? We're almost there. And there is importance to having the stadium built. For me, here's the importance, I think, as well. He mentioned community, right? This is going to be, you hear this from Senator Glenn Wakai, you hear this from Governor Josh Green. This new entertainment district is going to be kind of, I think this is going to be like almost like the hub for the island, right? The rail is going there. It's going to be, I mean, it's hard to be patient because there's a lot of state projects that we have just, the state has fumbled on multiple times. But this thing has a potential to put Hawaii in a better spot, not only just in athletics, but just the state in general, because it is the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District is supposed to generate revenue for the state. And that's something I think we as fans need to be looking forward to. Now, for the group of the fans that just, I mean, I get it. It's, you don't trust the government, you don't trust the state. I understand. But if you want the stadium on campus, here's a question that I posted on some platforms is, if the stadium is going to be building on campus, you're going to at least need 2 to 3 years for it to be built. And that's just the way things are. I mean, that's the standard on the continent. And I mean, the standard in Hawaii would probably be like, oh, if you say 2 to 3 years, you're probably going to need double that at least minimum, because that's how way things take long to do. But if you try to build a permanent stadium on campus, here's the question I want to pose for people that want to do that. Do you think we're going to have home games in those 2 years where it's building? And I think no. And here's the thing. If you are going to be building that area, no one's going to be able to go on that field. So where is our football team going to practice? And that's something you got to realize, right? If our football team doesn't have any place to practice, then how are we even going to be competing? And like it's a lose-lose if you do that, right? I mean, we see it with the Wahine soccer, where they needed to find places to practice because their stadium is being built. And Coach Bud Nagamine, I mean, she kind of has the similar sentiment as Matt Elliott. We'll figure it out, right? We'll find fields, maybe Kapilani. We'll go here, or we'll go to Mid-Pac. The women's track and field team, they also had that struggle of having to find a field to practice, where it be at St. Louis, where it be at, I mean, I see them at Iolani, I see them at Kaiser. There's just a lot of places that the track and field team have to practice. Imagine if football had to go through that. The number one, what should be your program's number one revenue generating sport. Where are they going to practice if we're building this stadium on campus? I don't know where they're going to practice, Paul. I really do not know where they're going to practice. You're going to have to have, if anything, you're going to have require buses to transport them. So that's the number one thing I'm going to caution about people that want the stadium built on campus. Is where's the football team going to practice in that time frame, and will we host home games for that time frame? And honestly, the answer I think is no. And if we do go there is a very solid chance that we lose the fan base completely. Yeah,
I think that's a very valid point that you bring up, where and to be fair, there were text questions about practice facility for the football team. There were text questions about upgrading the LAS, about upgrading TC Ching after the new Aloha Stadium was built. And we obviously just ran out of time with Matt Elliott today, and it's something that I also do think he would have a better answer for a little bit more in the future rather than on day 2. But it is a really valid and more than valid, honestly, a great point by you where as you move into the Mountain West Conference, the last thing you want to do is to have the moneymaker, and that is what football is. Not have a home. Not have the ability to play home games, especially during this important time in this critical juncture in collegiate athletics where you have the potential of opting into the house settlement, where you have the ability to have generate revenue and then share that revenue with your student athletes, the $20 million cap, the all of the different monetary things that go into it beyond just, are we not going to be able to play home football games? That it just doesn't make a ton of sense, and it is a big reason why there is so much pressure, why there have been so many hoops that they've jumped through to make sure that they're going to be able to start their demolition come the end of August, to make sure that they have everything, the T's crossed, the I's dotted, and all of the different jargon in the contract that is needed. There's a reason why they're taking as much time as they possibly can without delaying it further, because everybody, I think, they understand the stakes in which they are currently playing with, and it is, like you mentioned, the potential of losing your Division I football program, I suppose, or at least losing the fan base, and that is a precursor to eventually shutting it off. And it just seems crazy to think of a world without Hawaii football. So it's just something that I'm glad we have somebody in place. I'm glad we have somebody who is passionate about it in Matt Elliott. I'm glad that it's something that he wants up in Halava. He wants to make sure it is going to continue on the process in which it has been going on through. But yeah, there's so much more that goes into it than just, let's build a stadium here on campus.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I'm passionate about the stadium or just kind of talk about the issues, because I do go to these meetings, and I realize that we at Hawaii Sports Radio Network are not just on radio. We have web stories, we have social media, our own work Twitters that I should say we do. I mean, we're trying to post to Facebook, and we're streaming on YouTube, obviously. So there's a lot of platforms that we're on. So sometimes the distribution of information is not on all of the platforms, because we're just trying to provide it anyway. So for the Stadium Talk, I don't usually self-plug, but do follow me.
Self-plug, baby.
Do follow me on Twitter. I just pinned some of my takeaways from the Stadium Authority Board meeting last Thursday on my Twitter or X. My name is Michael Lescaro. You can just find it easily. I pinned it on my profile, and you can kind of go through the things, because I feel like I don't want to keep explaining it while it's there. And Paul, I guess I'm going to do a better job at using my Twitter to be more informative. I mean, I try to match Paul's affinity for tweeting about the Knicks here and there, but I realize maybe need to be a little bit more professional here, and I'll try to keep my tweets more of information or valid opinions that you need to hear from. But Paul, it's a good time to go to break, because
I was going to say, I personally won't be doing that, but I do see these donuts that are sticking by our side, so we may need to take a break. But no, a great plug by you, Michael, as you can go check out his Twitter, like he said, at Michael Lescaro, and just check out some of the biggest takeaways that he has had, as he's been able to be the one attending all of these meetings. I should take the camera off of you. My apologies. He's been the one that has attended all of these meetings and has plenty more to say about it. We've talked a lot about UH today. Michael, I want to talk a little NBA, so let's go to break, and when we come back, I think we'll talk a little bit about some basketball. Maybe I'll let you mourn Mr. Myles Turner leaving the Pacers. Maybe we'll talk about something else. I don't know. We'll see. But we're taking a break. We'll be right back here on Wake Up in the Den, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Dial
I'm gonna hate to break it to you.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Paul Brecht, Michael Lascaro here in hour number 2, 95.1 FM, streaming live on our YouTube channel, Hawaii Sports Radio Network, and on our website, hawaiisportsradio.com. Appreciate you tuning in this and every weekday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network as we talk all things sports. Mahalo once again to new University of Hawai'i at Manoa Athletics Director Matt Elliott for taking time out of his busy schedule this morning to join Michael and I and talk a bit about his background. Let us know a little more about him and who he is. And certainly we got to some of your text questions. And once again, in case we didn't get to your text question, one, I promise we will get to it in the future. And two, I may have asked him off air, and he may have asked if I could get back to you on that. And that is part of the reason that we have that as well. But we've been talking a ton about the University of Hawai'i, talking about the University of Hawai'i football team, the stadium, and all of these different things that we didn't end up really talking about basketball at all.
Yeah, well, shout out to our YouTube chats. We got Mike J in here asking if he ever talked to Ranganat. I don't know if that question was for Coach, Athletic Director Matt Elliott, but yes, the answer is yes.
I was going to say yes.
But, and then, Paul, me and you have talked to Ranganat a lot, so the answer is yes on all fronts for that question. Mike J, thank you for chiming in. As well as James Balsai. What are plans for football practice fields and performance center? Yeah, we have none, exactly. Yes. So we do need those practice fields. I do kind of went on my diatribe of a rant about that, on why we need that. So, I mean, assuming that we do have a little stadium built in Halava, then we would have that Cheng field to be a practice facility. I mean, that's going to be where they're going to be practicing and whatnot. I mean, maybe they could make that an indoor practice. I mean, I say indoor practice facilities because that's kind of the hot topic in some colleges and the NFL. But again, we live in Hawaii. But if it is raining, which it does rain in Manoa, that will be kind of nice to do.
Yeah, you're not kidding right there. Yes, like you said, Michael, thank you for both Mike J and James Balsai for tuning on in and dropping comments in the YouTube chat. If you have any questions, if you have anywhere you want the conversation to go, please drop stuff into the chat. Leave us a like. Shoot us a text, 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481. And we try and get to everything that we can. And yeah, we can continue on that a little bit just momentarily, where it certainly would be nice to see a continuation of upgrades for the facilities, right? We saw the baseball field get an upgrade to its turf in this past year. We've seen the basketball team has Gym 2, or basketball teams, pardon me, have Gym 2, Gym 1 and Gym 2. The volleyball team's the same exact thing, where you can work on your game in separate gymnasiums than just the Stan Sheriff Center. That's not the case for the University of Hawai'i football team. They play on the same field in which they practice on, and as we've talked about before, the track and field team for the past however many seasons, ever since the football team moved to TC Ching, they have been displaced. They have been trying to find different areas. So I have to imagine that an upgrade to a performance center or the practice fields are I shouldn't say in the works because it's day 2 of Matt Elliott, but I'm sure it is something that will, if it hasn't come across his desk quite yet, it is something that will come across his desk going forward in the future. Just because, like he said, he's very competitive. He wants to win. He wants to lead this program to championships, whether it's Big West, Mountain West, national championships. He wants to do all of those things, and I think that Matt Elliott understands that to do that, you need to provide the best possible resources that you can as a program, and that goes into stadiums, practice fields, rehab equipment, performance center, etc.
Again, I think his number one, there's a lot of things that stuck out, but he always talks about the student athlete experience, right? And he's always on his confirmation press conference, he said, education has always been on the forefront of his mind, and college athletics is just the vehicle that he's a part of it, right? I'm not too sure I can't remember, Paul, when you were talking about his background, but he did have that stint with, I think it was Education for America. What is it called, Paul?
Oh man, yeah,
Teach for America.
Yeah, I think it's Teach for America.
Yeah, and that he shows that he cares about that next, just definitely the students and the next generation, because that is something that we kind of need, right? I mean, not to get into any political things, but there's already talks about, there's already been cuts to things like the Department of Education, right? I'm not saying like those cuts are bad or good anyway. I'm just saying like we do need to maximize the resources we have to help bring up the students and the student athletes, because there's things that these student athletes need to do. I mean, and those are things that has been around for a long time, right? Even before NIL, even before revenue share, even before student athletes could start earning from their name, image, and likeness in college athletics, they were producing revenue for the universities, right? I mean, we go back to the 90s with Michigan with the Fab Five, right? They realize, hey, but they're not getting a single lick of that, right? So we need to help these student athletes want to be here, and that's where I think we can kind of get the edge. I know in our recruiting pitches we see on social media, like, oh, why wouldn't you want to play for Hawaii? Why wouldn't you want to go to the beach? Why wouldn't you go to the mountains? Why wouldn't you come to the Ohana, the Aloha Spirit? Why wouldn't you want to come here? And that's all great in our social media pitches.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
But the day-to-day things, I mean, it's expensive to live in Hawaii, if you didn't realize, right? I mean,
what?
We should, I mean,
You're telling me this for the first time.
For our student athletes, can we, my personal idea is, why don't we have like a student athlete village where, hey, this is kind of the place where you can kind of come and kind of chill. And that's how you kind of maybe attract some quality players, right? I know everyone's talking about, wanting to get more money with the NILs, and we're never going to compete, but let's compete with them with our facilities, right? Because the facilities, that's going to stay. The student athlete in college, that's only there for 4 years, but let's invest into the things that can benefit multiple student athletes, as well as instead of having that narrow mind where like, hey, we got to give $1 million or thousands of dollars to this one specific athlete because they play quarterback or they play cornerback, or oh, this is a star pitcher, right? Let's put things into the facilities, into the department that's going to last longer than the student athlete's tenure, and that way it can be used to benefit more student athletes overarching in the long term.
No, that's a great point by you, and an important point as well, where, listen, I understand the concerns about monetary spending and about the monetary ability for the University of Hawaii when it comes to competing against obviously P4 schools, but as we grow into this bigger divide, it's going to be the G5 and the G6 schools, which one of those programs can spend at the top and whatnot. But we've seen at the college level that it's not always who can spend the most. It's not always, who has the biggest purse on players. It's who has the best facilities, who has the ability to provide for their student athletes. I mean, it's a quote that we discuss on Wake Up in the Den all the time is the one from Coach Laura Beeman, who discusses her players look good, feel good, play good, right? That doesn't just stop for women's basketball players. That's the case for a majority of athletes, where if you're able to look good, you're able to feel good, you're able to then play good. That extends out to your environment. It extends out to your nutrition. It's why I enjoy seeing the Brotherhood Grinds and those type of partnerships going forward. It's why I like to see the student athletes being placed into internship positions even outside of their sports, because like you mentioned, Hawaii probably won't be able to compete at the top dollar monetarily for every single player. But if you make it such a good experience that people don't want to leave in the first place, then you're going to be able to compete and pay a fair dollar, that you're going to be able to, maybe they take a little bit less. These kids, some of them do understand that there is more to it than just getting the biggest payday, that there is more to it than just seeing, how big of a bag am I being offered? How many benefits can I get in terms of the short term? Hawaii does or should be looking at extending those to long-term benefits, and I like that idea from you.
Yeah, I mean, you also want to retain the student athlete, right?
Yep.
I think one of the biggest knocks with the men's basketball program, this year and last year is that it's a completely brand new team.
Yep.
We as fans, we want to get invested in these players, right? I mean, and now with NIL and college athletics, you kind of see that in men's basketball where, hey, it's not just one and done. Who's that guy from UNC? Not Elliot, but the other one that's been there for like 6 years. But he's been a fan of University of North Carolina men's basketball because he's run the program. And as much as we can do to get the recruits in and the product on the court, on the field to be winning, we also want to be winning those relationships. And that's one thing that I feel with Matt Elliott he's going to do a great job with, is that relationship building. And that's one of the core tenets of the state and of Hawaii. And I love that. I love that for the university.
I am very excited for the University of Hawaii and for University of Hawaii student athletes for this new era, for this new adventure with Matt Elliott leading the charge. I will, before we step to our final break of the day, we're talking about student athletes being in position to succeed, and there is a big part of student athlete, the student part, right? The academic part. I wanted to give a shout out to UH Athletics just as a whole, as they set school records for semester GPA, the school record for APR score, 2 academic All-American selections, and 44 academic All-District selections. The 3.25 spring GPA is a school record, and all 19 teams that Hawaii has, they all recorded above a 3.0 team GPA. So congratulations. Excellent job to all of the student athletes for taking care of their business, not just on the court, on the field, on the diamond. I'm probably missing something, on the beach, wherever else you may be taking care of your business, but also in the classroom, making a great example for the next generation. Got to step aside for our final break of the day. When we return, we'll close it on out on this Aloha Tuesday on Wake Up in the Den.
What if we told you that you could turn $1 into 2?
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Paul Brecht and Michael Lascaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Paul Brecht, Michael Lascaro closing things out on this Aloha Tuesday. Thank you again to Matt Elliott, the new University of Hawai'i at Manoa Athletics Director, for joining us all throughout hour number one to talk about his past, his background, what brought him into this sports sphere as somebody with a law background, and kind of how he made his way to Hawaii. Why is it so important to him? So much more. All of that available on demand following this show wherever you get most podcasts at Hawaii Sports Radio Network. Also will be on our YouTube channel, Hawaii Sports Radio Network, along with most of our Monday shows that, in case you missed yesterday's show, last week's show, any other show, you can go find them there. In case you miss our Ku'ule Agbayani, you can find shows from her there, but be sure to drop a like, a comment, maybe even subscribe if you like what you see. We do so much more than just Wake Up in the Den, as Michael was saying before. A big day today in University of Hawai'i athletics. A big day yesterday as well, as Matt Elliott began his tenure as the new athletic director for the Rainbow Warrior and Wahine programs. Starts today the new era of Nike and the University of Hawai'i, and obviously still waiting on some of the apparel to come on through, the uniforms to come on through for the University of Hawai'i football team, but excited to see those coming on through. Today also starts the House settlement and the ability for colleges to opt in and pay players. They actually had to officially opt in as of yesterday. 319 schools officially opting in, and some further rules and regulations around that. Schools will have up until March of the next year to announce or to opt into the following year, school year's revenue sharing, and that obviously starts a brand new era of college sports, Michael, where we've talked about it, honestly, through this show, through this week, through a long time, where the money was always coming. The money has now arrived. It can directly go from schools to student athletes. And once again, I'm glad to have Matt Elliott in charge. I'm glad to have somebody set in the chair and ready to go now as we enter a new era.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about Matt Elliott ad nauseum already. Paul, NBA, man.
Do you want to talk about it?
Paul, we're on sports radio.
You want to talk about it?
I wore the hat.
All right, let's talk about it. Michael Lascaro allowed me to take it into the NBA, where I think the most shocking move of the morning that I woke up to was the longest tenured Indiana Pacer, Myles Turner, announcing that he will be signing with the Milwaukee Bucks, a massive 4-year pact worth over $100 million as he moves on after a decade with the Indiana Pacers. And Giannis Antetokounmpo tweeting out in the morning, "I don't know what's going on right now, man," and that is the picture with mood next to it as the caption. So
he posted that?
He did post that. It's going to be
on where?
On Twitter. It'll be, or X, pardon me, for those of you who use that platform.
I say Twitter.
I also still say Twitter, but that was the reaction 5 hours ago from Giannis Antetokounmpo, who...
Oh, that was Giannis. I thought Myles Turner.
No. Sorry.
Okay.
But
apparently, Giannis was shocked that Damian Lillard got let go.
And that is another thing. The other side of that move is the Milwaukee Bucks waiving and stretching the contract of Damian Lillard.
So they're buying him out. They're still going to pay him, and they're going to pay Myles Turner. So that's a lot
of money.
I mean, that's definitely not a way to manage your credit cards.
It's certainly a way. It's not the way that I would do it. The Bucks waiving Damian Lillard and his remaining $113 million on his contract in order to acquire Myles Turner. Turner signs on a 4-year, $107 million deal that includes a 4th-year player option in 2028, 2029, and a full 15% trade kicker, which that means if he gets traded, he gets a 15% raise on his contract, a 15% bonus.
It ends Lillard's time in Milwaukee after 2 years, and as he rehabilitates a torn Achilles tendon that he underwent surgery on back in May. Lillard, it was reported, welcomed the release on Tuesday and now receives all of the $113 million owed, and he's able to rehab back in Portland as he's surrounded by his family and choose his next destination on his time. But the bigger thing, Michael, the longest tenured pacer at 10 seasons with Indiana, he officially makes a move, and it's in division as well. This was something that I'll say is shocking to me. I had basically penciled him in, almost put pen over it, that he would be back with the Pacers, but the calculation changes a little bit after the Tyrese Halliburton injury in Game 7. We've talked about the luxury tax before, and with what appears to be potentially a lost year for the Pacers coming up, considering what they can be with Tyrese Halliburton injured or not injured, they end up saying aloha to Myles Turner. What are your feelings on this? How are you feeling today?
Well, Paul, as in our text message over the past couple of these, I've kind of I was like, hey, there hasn't been anything yet. That kind of doesn't make it a bit work, because if there was already a deal in place, that it would already been announced, but there hasn't been, right? And that's, I think what I just saw recently is that I guess the Pacers weren't budging from a 3-year, $60 million deal, which would have been 20 annually. What he's getting from the Bucks about 26.7 million annually, and it kind of sucks. At the same time, this franchise was open to moving on from Myles Turner a couple of summers back ago, when they offered a max contract to DeAndre Ayton. Now, I wasn't opposed to having DeAndre Ayton. I think that would kind of help out our rebounding, because that's something that Myles Turner kind of struggled with his rebounding. Myles Turner is kind of a 3-and-D, where he's a shot blocking stretch 5, which is his skill set. But his shooting ability failed him in the finals, right? If he doesn't shoot about 20% from the 3-point line, we probably win a few more games. Other than maybe two threes he made in the fourth quarter, or 2 jumpers he made in the fourth quarter in Game 1, he really wasn't a factor offensively. Yes, he was dealing with a sickness, but this was kind of a tough move, right? And I definitely think it may. I want to think that it's something that Tyrese Halliburton was privy to, because the sense from the fans even before Tyrese injury is if we're not trying to get into the luxury tax, when we need to make room to sign Myles, it's probably Obi Toppin going out the door, former Knick, right? But
who has been very good for the Pacers.
Obi Toppin was a top 3 scorer in the finals up until Game 7 when he scored 0, because his head was in the right place after he threw the pass to Tyrese when Tyrese got hurt after that. But he can play a small ball 5, and when teams go small against us, we can have Pascal and Obi Toppin at the 4 and 5, and they can dominate whoever's guarding them, because they're just naturally bigger and more athletic. So they really didn't want to get rid of Obi Toppin, because he can play, for the 4 off the bench or play that 5, right? Because there were stints too where Myles Turner couldn't guard Karl Anthony Towns, and I think it's because I don't know how else to say it, but maybe because Karl Anthony Towns was a bit zesty, he couldn't take advantage of that matchup as much. Paul, I don't know what the word is, but you guys know what I'm talking about. That's those to follow. But yeah, so it's a new era for the Pacers. Essentially, the Bucks are paying Myles Turner $50 million a year because they're paying for Damian Lillard and for his contract. So I guess in a way, his Myles Turner final act as a Pacer is hamstringing one of our rivals, so financially. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I'm okay with it. I was kind of open to him not coming back. And it just shifts the calculus, right? I think we want to see what we get in Benedict Mathurin, who's been a harsh draft pick since Rick Smith. I think now this opens the door for us to extend him, and if you give him an extension, that is more money that we can use to kind of trade away or dish out. We also have our first round pick this year. So yeah, I'm in a good spot. Definitely with Matt Elliott in
Okay.
office and donuts. I'm in a good spot.
Good. That is all I really care about. As, like I said, Myles Turner makes his way to the Bucks. The longest tenured Pacer is all POW there. Once again, we're all POW right here. Mahalo to Matt Elliott for joining us all throughout hour number 1. In case you missed that, go check it out on demand. But we have to say goodbye. For Michael Lascaro, I'm Paul Brecht. Thanks for listening to Wake Up in the Den. Bye.
Home of the Los Angeles Clippers, KG.